Aha! This is Labords, and these are the paints you need. Okay, we are starting with one of the innermost layers of the mini. Cover the inside of the mouth with a base layer consistency of burnt red. Locate the visible parts of the skin with a mix of burnt red and sundry dust. These brutes have a quite desaturated palette too. It's not a shocker at this point with this game, but we will follow the illustrations nonetheless. Don't try to be super clean about how you cover the mini, just make sure you cover all the skin areas. We do this while the burnt red is still drying inside the mouth, and then we continue to work on the tongues to save time. Using thicker consistency increases the drying time, but it also helps with covering the minis fast, so if you're afraid of touching the wet parts, use a hairdryer to speed up the process. Highlight the tongue with Tasgorfer, aiming for the middle part of it, and once you do that, thin down the paint to quickly blend in this highlight, moving the brush from the lower to the higher value area. It's better to deal with the mouth now, because once we paint the teeth, we more likely make some mistakes over the painted teeth to reach the inside of the mouth. Give the skin and teeth a wash of snakebite leather. This will add some depth to the recess areas and also give an ochre brown tint to the skin. Don't let the wash go into the mouth, we only want it on the teeth and the skin really. We'd like to keep the different colors for the mouth for now, and the wash would create a very integrated feel for it. A hairdryer is very handy at this point as well, so once the wash dries, we can go to the next step. Paint the teeth with ice yellow. The previous wash of snakebite leather should have created some nice recess shadows between each tooth, so we like to keep those recess areas and paint the surface of the teeth. Use a base layer consistency and a brush that has a nice tip. It's very important to paint each tooth individually and not just as a whole to have maximum detail over the surface. After that, start highlighting the skin. There is very little we can pick out on the head, which I'm going to be honest, very nice because batch painting faces can be a true time sink. Just sketch the major volumes in a centric way. I'm not really using any highlight reference photos for now, just sketching the top part of each section, and where I think the value step is a bit too rough, I go over it with a thin layer to make some quick blends, but it's really just one or two layer tops. So don't try to achieve something super smooth, or at least that's my approach for these rank and file minis. By the way, these are awesome, the sculpts I mean, like these are giving some fat mouth of Sauron vibes, and I love it. Try to catch the bumpy texture of the face, but as I said, there is not much to catch, so leave some of the previous layer visible to have some contrast, and that's it basically. I cover all the leather parts with Rhinox hide, all the boots, wrist guards, belt buckles, scabbards and belt buckles. Did I mention belt buckles? Alright, this is the phase where we need to be very aware which section is going to have which color. The same level of attention required to know that we will cover everything in the next few steps. And to be fast with that, we need to use base layer consistency the whole time. We can differentiate the sections with different highlight colors, but mainly we want to get rid of the black primer for now. Continue the process with Hull Red and cover the lower robe. After that, cover their undershirt with the same base mix we use for the skin, but add some grimy gray to it. The undershirt is teared up on some sections, so watch out for those details and don't forget to cover them. If you miss the spot on the skin, go back to it now or I will slap on your tiny hand. Shade down the shadow areas on the shirts with some strong tone or Egrex Earthshade, whichever you have. I'm using strong tone and I let the wash flow into the crevices. Watch out for the skin, we don't really need to shade those parts, so they can stand out more between the armor and the shirt. Don't apply too much wash to the surface, just enough so the surface tension of the wash could hold it in one place. Cover the metallic parts of the armor with brass scorpion or any metallic gold paint you prefer. I really like this one because it has a very nice coverage and it's a darker gold, well, brass basically, but it looks nice as a darker gold alternative. Don't forget to use a different water pot and a brush when you apply these metallic paint coats, because the little metallic flakes inside these paints can ruin your fancy brushes pretty fast, chiseling away their tip. So always use a dedicated brush and a water pot for metallic paints. For the rest of the metallic parts, like the helmet, shoulder armor or the details on the scabbards and the shield, I use oily steel. This is a darker neutral metal color with also nice coverage values. Usually the brighter metallic paints have some poor coverage, like Gehenna's Gold from Citadel or Shining Silver from Army Painter, but I guess it's just the way these paints are. When you're using metallics as a base coat, always use out of the pot consistency for best results. We don't want to glaze these or anything like that, just nice solid layers like Granny's Grey Cataract. On the metallic sections, use some Nuln Oil or a dark tone to shade them down. This wash will nicely flow between the armor panels, adding more definition to the recess areas and also mutes back the shiny characteristic of the metallic paints. So it will look a bit more dirty, which is quite fitting for a zombie soldier. These scales on the armor will squeeze the wash out of the bristles as you go over them, so don't load up your brush up to the brim, because it's really not necessary and you will overflow the mini with the wash. Cover the fur parts on the collar and the binding on the shoulders with a Karakstone Rhinox hide mix. We are applying base layers again, so consistency is key to cover more surfaces efficiently. Since these parts are close to the face, I'm going to highlight them using Karakstone with a base layer consistency, picking out the hair chunks while leaving some recess areas visible with the previous layers. Try to hold your brush parallel to the direction of the fur for easier access and better results. Let's push the contrast between the values a little bit more with some ice yellow. Same method as in the previous step, we are just going to cover a little bit less of the fur to create a gradient with our layers. Start highlighting the undershirts too, focusing on the folds that face up. Go around the edges of the teared up parts to add more detail and leave some recessed shadows so we don't lose contrast over them. Reduce the highlight areas on the shirts inside the previous layer. I'm not really blending anything, just placing the highlights over the parts where it feels right, and since we build up these values with mixtures that gradually go up in value, it's going to look quite blended already. Also, we have a bunch of these guys to cover, so no crazy blending here because we want to put these on the table as fast as we can. Highlight the pouches and leather parts like the scabbard or the leather armor around the waist with Tasgor. Go around the edges for some quick edge highlights on the belts and apply some layers to the top of the scabbard. You can also add some texture with some thin lines imitating some scratches to make them more interesting. Add some ice yellow to the Tasgor fur and focus more on the edges that face up on the previous parts. Cover the shield's flat part with some Morphang brown. I also go back around these small straps on the wrists to cover those as well, because for some reason I left them out. Add some volume to the shield with Morphang brown and sundry dust, and around the edges of the previously covered straps on the wrist. Lastly, I splattered some blood effects over the miniatures with some blood for the blood god, using a brush that has some very firm bristles. Dip your brush into the paint and then pull back the bristles, and then the spring effect will take care of the rest. I also go back with the brush on the parts next to the mouth as blood is dripping down there. With that, the Warden brutes are done and ready for the table. You can find the basing video for these guys on my Patreon page next to my core box tutorials, and you can expect the campaign box to be covered as well next to other Simon games like Marvel Zombies or Massive Darkness 2 if you are interested in that. A huge thanks to my patrons who support my work. Special shoutout goes to Cold-Blooded Dom, Trying to Paint Minis, Jonathan Mosner, Glitchy McCrash, Penoman45, Michael Kerr, Remlo, Simon Stefan and Courtney Hester. I hope your day will be as smooth as a granny's butt cheek.